Come on in, guys. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about 6 of Survivor's most bizarre jury questions. Before the format was changed to a more open format in Survivor Game Changers, Final Tribal Council was the last chance for each member of the jury to say their piece. For some, it's an emotional, cathartic experience, allowing them to come to terms with their loss. For others, it's a means to inform a potentially million-dollar decision. And for these guys, well, I don't know what most of the people here were doing, actually. With so many jury questions over the years, some of them were bound to be pretty bizarre. So let's go through some of Survivor's weirdest jury questions and try to figure out what was being asked and why. I won't be including bizarre jury speeches. We'll cover those next week. There was just so much jury weirdness, I had to actually split it up into 2 videos. So for now, we'll strictly be talking about strange or hilarious questions asked to the finalists. All that said, let's dig in to 6 of Survivor's most bizarre jury questions. At number 6 is Brett's flirty question to Mick in Survivor Samoa. Mick got it pretty rough in Samoa's Final Tribal Council. While most of the jury admired Natalie's strong social game, and some of the jury admired Russell's strong strategic game, none of the jury admired much of anything about Mick. He was raked over the coals for being a follower, the only one of the Foa 4 who really didn't advance their success in the game in any way, other than by being a warm body who could vote how he was told. Now, I do feel a bit bad for Mick here. He starts off Final Tribal Council with his patented smug grin, but that is very much wiped off his face by the end. This jury goes pretty hard on him. I mean, 2 of the most iconic moments of this season are just him being called names here.
Feckless.
Delusional entitlement.
Mick gets a bit of a reprieve from all that coal raking when Brett, who was somehow hilariously the final boss of Survivor Samoa, takes the stand to ask him out.
Mick, imagine for a moment you and I are going on a little bro date together. What kind of stuff would we do?
Wait, what is it?
You and I are gonna go on a bro date together. Nothing sexual, just a little guy time. And so describe to me what that day would entail.
This is obviously a pretty weird question, but it's actually a really clever way for Brett to suss out just how much Mick knows about him, which isn't much. Mick gives the most generic answer humanly possible. Their bro date would involve checking the news, getting some food, talking about girls, and sports. You really couldn't, get any more personal, Mick. I mean, this guy had 10 confessionals and I watched him on TV 12 years ago, and I still remember he's a t-shirt designer. Maybe bring that up. Well, in Mick's defense, I guess, it's not like Brett's literally wearing his creative passion and his business on his sleeve, or anything like that. At number 5 is Heidi fishing for some validation in Survivor Amazon. In Amazon, Heidi and Jenna hit it off instantly and were an inseparable pair. Why, they're just 2 peas in a pod. They're even both big fans of chocolate and peanut butter. Within Survivor, they found a lot of success side by side, making it all the way to the final 5, where Heidi was unfortunately voted out. When it came time for Heidi to ask Jenna and Matt a question at Final Tribal Council, it seemed like a no-brainer that she'd try to lob Jenna a softball or otherwise pump her up in some way. Instead, Heidi asks Jenna and Matt if there's anyone on the jury who they believe should be there instead. Naturally, since they both had front row seats to the heretofore greatest losing game in Survivor history, both Matt and Jenna said Rob. Yeah, sure, but is there anyone else?
I mean, I think is that the only person?
I think they covered it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on, Jeff. They were just about to say her. Now, it's been alleged that Heidi was trying to get Jenna to say Dina instead to lock up her vote, but I'm not sure I really buy that explanation. Seems a bit of an ex post facto justification for a jury question that was dunked on for years after it happened. I mean, it's not like fishing for compliments is out of character for Heidi. Sure, actual fishing and gathering firewood and helping at camp is, but not fishing for compliments. She does that a lot. At number 4 is Lisi's pair of loaded questions to Cassandra and Dreams in Survivor Fiji. This may be the nastiest final tribal council in Survivor history. Not many of the jurors come off looking super great here. Even Earl gets it pretty bad despite playing an all-time great game and being an all-around affable, chill, likable dude. Now, I'm not sure why exactly this jury was so venomous to this final three in particular. No clue why. Absolutely no idea why these three particular people drew so much ire for no reason. But there were some mean jury speeches. And while there were meaner things said at this final tribal council, none are as weirdly mean as Lisi's questions to Cassandra and Dreams. Look, Lisi clearly came into Final Tribal with the intention of being cruel. She wanted to make Cassandra and Dreams feel foolish. I suppose that is her right as a Survivor juror. But like all things Lisi, she completely botches the landing and only makes herself look foolish in the process.
Cassandra, can I see your water shoes?
Sure.
All right, those are the worst looking water shoes I've ever seen. It's just telling me that you were completely unprepared to play this game.
Yeah, water shoes. What is she even trying to say? I don't even think Lisi herself had water shoes. And this is all very rich coming from Lisi, who spent most of her game on Moto, the literal best camp in Survivor history, and still tried to quit the game like a dozen times. Lisi then asks Dreams how many zeros are in a million, in what has to be the single most condescending thing ever said at any final tribal council.
Dreams, I want to know how many zeros there are in a million.
6.
Good. Good. Okay,
Are we sure she actually even knows the answer herself? Maybe she wasn't trying to be condescending and actually just wanted to know. I don't know. Anyway, let's see that faceplant again.
Moto.
Whoa. At number 3 is Morgan's well-rounded question to Tony in Survivor Cagayan. Morgan is a woman who is proud of her appearance, as she should be. But Morgan's entire Survivor storyline literally revolves around how hot she is and how hot others aren't. Anytime someone criticizes her, they're only jealous or afraid of her beauty. Like, by the end of the season, Morgan will have implied or directly stated that roughly half of her fellow castaways are ugly, especially in comparison to her. Don't get the wrong impression though, she doesn't want to sound conceited.
I don't want to sound like super conceited, but from a guy, I usually get what I want. This sounds really conceited, but I think she hates me because I'm cuter than her, and I've always been cuter than her. I mean, I don't mean to sound conceited, but I think we're beauty.
The thing I love most about Morgan is that this is genuinely who she is. She's not playing some character for the cameras. This is Morgan, in a sea of hyper-strategic superfans thinking 10 moves ahead while collecting every advantage under the sun. There's Morgan, sleeping in until 12:30 in the afternoon, watching the hyper-strategists try to play around someone who doesn't even seem to know what show they're on, and seeing their brains melt down in the process is a true joy. Morgan is the Heidi of the Big Moves era, and much like Heidi, she has a jury question queued up that only she could ask.
I know how to keep a man in my back pocket, and I think it's, sort of a skill. You kept men in your back pocket, and you did it without even having breasts. So how did you do it? I just want to know, how did you get these men to just follow you?
Tony's all business on the answer, saying that he gained loyalty despite playing a cutthroat game through simple acts of kindness, like sharing his last sip of water, for example. Sharing, Morgan? Generously giving something to someone without the expectation of something in return? Not ringing a bell, huh? At number 2 is Big Tom's incomprehensible jury question to the final 2 in Survivor Africa. Survivor Africa is undoubtedly one of the most difficult seasons of Survivor for the players for a lot of reasons. The blistering Kenyan heat, the constant threat of being attacked by wildlife, Brandon. But one underratedly difficult thing about this season is the food situation. Not so much acquiring food, but the taste. Because they couldn't really fish or hunt, most of the meals this season were just this disgusting corn mush. Eating the same flavorless slop every day clearly took a mental toll on everyone. Okay, now that we've established that, to Tribal. At Final Tribal Council, we get your pretty standard Final Tribal fare. until Tom steps up and gets downright philosophical and reflects on their experience.
Ethan, if a hyena came through camp and eat our mush, and then after he ate it, he turned around and licked his hind end, did he do it because that was animal instinct or because to get the taste of the mush out of his mouth?
Ethan giggles through his answer and takes it into the first person, saying that he'd lick the hind end for cleanliness. Oh, Ethan, you dog. Now I see why every Survivor girl at the time was tripping over themselves to date you. Really, Ethan had this locked up no matter what he said. He could have called Tom a big dumb hick and still gotten his vote. The Boston Rob strategy. Even more absurd than Tom's question is that Kim actually tries to answer it seriously. Kim, you know this isn't a serious question, right? Like, remember the whole premise? The most bizarre jury question in Survivor history is Natalie's sultry, flirty question to Parvati in Survivor Micronesia. Natalie is one of the biggest fan standouts from either Fans vs. Favorites season. But it's easy to forget that in Micronesia, she was basically invisible for the first 10 episodes, before her breakout as a truly iconic jugular flossing villain late in the season. A critical member of the Black Widow Brigade, Natalie reveled in all the man-eating this alliance was doing, lulling Jason into a false sense of security so he doesn't play his idol, and convincing Eric to give her individual immunity, only for him to be voted out in what Jeff describes as a life lesson. But once they're down to the final 4, Natalie's voted out, and gives us a little teaser of her jury question in her final words. This is a great Final Tribal Council all around. I'll totally admit that sometimes Final Tribal is a total slog. Just boring questions answered diplomatically, but not Micronesia's. Flirt away, Natalie.
You have labeled yourself as a flirt. You're probably the most masterful person in the history of Survivor to play the flirt card, which is great. My question to you is, how does that resonate for you in the bedroom?
Well, she's right. Parvati is a notorious flirt, so much so that the mere threat of a Parvati 2.0 doomed an entire generation of young brunette women on this show to an early boot fate. But I do think there's something to this question, strange as it is. I think what she was asking is, Parvati, you're a flirt. But who are you, really? In an actual romantic situation, are you still using flirtation to get what you want, even from a romantic partner? Is it authentic, or just a means to an end? Or maybe Natalie had a couple wine coolers at Ponderosa and decided to shoot her shot. Yeah, that's probably it. Got nothing else for you. I don't want to sound conceited, but you guys should like and subscribe, and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.